Welcome to the Assist Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and joining me today is a former North Ridgeville football standout, in the lightest sense of the word, JJ Conklin. JJ, how are you?
I'm pretty good, and I like the use of the term standout because I did stand out on the sideline most of the time. I cheered on our team to 3 victories our senior year out of 10, so it was a good time. Yikes. And I'm always going to say my claim to fame is I was the long snapper, and going 3-7 without botching a single punt all year, I think is a pretty good job on my part and the punter's part. So I'm proud of that.
That's the number one thing on your resume, isn't it?
Well, it's pretty close to the top, but that was a while ago. Now I'm onto bigger and better things, I guess, like watching football and watching basketball instead of playing football.
Right. So tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Well, number one, I think, is I pretend to be a big sports fan. I watch a lot of sports, but I wouldn't say I know a lot about sports. For example, my March Madness bracket, not too great. Yeah. But I enjoy watching our Bearcats basketball team and whatever. Outside of sports, it gets pretty boring. I'm a mechanical engineer at the University of Cincinnati. I'm in my 3rd semester. Last semester, I co-opted at Bendix Commercial Vehicle Systems. So made money, lived at home, got some experience. That was fun. And I'm also employed as a resident advisor for the university. So I'm in one of the resident halls that is like on-campus housing technically, but it's off-campus, so it's far away. And it's a lot of work, but the compensation is worth it. And I have some friends, a girlfriend in particular, who I enjoy spending lots of time with, and she just happens to go to the University of Cincinnati as well.
Yes, just happened to select that school.
Hey, we've been dating for 6 years now in April, so it is what it is.
What day is the anniversary?
It's April 17th, and it all started in 2013. So, wow. And if I forgot, I have a nice little poster that she made for me a year or 2 ago in my room to reference. Don't worry.
To tell you when the date is.
I looked up at it just in case.
Good. Well, she'll be happy to hear that you utilize that. So, as you said, someone of a sports guy, but you're not on today to talk about sports. That's the other episode getting published along with this one. We're going to kind of bounce around a little bit. I was supposed to do an episode with the college admissions scandal, but then I realized I wasn't prepared. So that'll be happening. That'll be coming next week, I think, or at some point. That'll be happening. We're doing an episode on that. There you go. Teaser. So today we're going to bounce around a lot of topics. We're going to talk about some international travel, of course. As you are now, I think, more countries than I have been to. Couple other things, some fun stuff, and we'll kind of see where this goes. So,
all right, I'm excited.
First thing you wanted to do was on episode 2 with Thorne, I asked him unanswerable questions. Now, you have an answer to one of the unanswerable questions, so I will give you the floor to answer this question.
Yes, I heard it, and I was like, oh, man, I'm going to email this in and answer it, but I think you gave me the idea, like, just hold on to it, and when you're a guest on the show, you can explain it. So exactly. Here I am. The question was, how do snow plow truck drivers get to work when it's snowing outside, if nobody else can get to work and the highways or whatever? And the answer is they get to work before everyone else does. So my mom works for the Ohio Department of Transportation. She's a county manager. So every weekend during the winter, one of the county managers are on call. And so when it's her, she has to monitor the weather very closely. And basically, as soon as it starts to snow, she starts making calls into her truck drivers to get them into work to start plowing. So they get to work before it starts snowing bad, essentially. So they just start plowing when it's not super deep, and they try to keep the roads as best they can for everyone else. So if it's constantly snowing, then they're rotating in and out on shifts, but they get called in right away when it starts snowing, and that's how they get to work.
So basically, truck drivers are always on call.
technically, so they don't have to come in, right? But the manager on call will beg, borrow, and plead for them to come in, because it might be considered overtime or whatever. So you get some that'll want to come in always. You get some that'll never want to come in.
Yeah.
And I don't know how their contracts work, but during the winter they are kind of always on call.
I see. Well, thank you for that enlightening answer to our listeners. I know they've been waiting for that question to be answered for the last 2.5 months.
They've been on the edge of their seats, I'm sure.
Exactly. All right, so next thing, you wanted to come on here and talk about the odds of a perfect March Madness bracket. Of course, we just had the first and second rounds over the weekend. We are now into the Sweet 16 starting on Thursday. And this gets brought up every year, but it is still shocking, and you wanted to talk about this.
Yes, as an engineer, I like numbers a lot, and I don't know that I've actually seen this number before, whether that's because it's different than previous predictions or just because I haven't seen it. But I'll try to not bore you with the math and skip over most of it, but there's 2 outcomes for every prediction, and there's 63 predictions that you make over the course of the first round to the champion. So you just take 2 to the power of 63, and that gives you 9.2 quintillion, which is the same as 9.2 billion billions, which is a really, really big number. And they give a bunch of examples, but I think the one that stands out to me the most to compare 9.2 quintillion to something that you can visualize is this right here. A group of researchers at the University of Hawaii estimated that there are 7.5 quintillion grains of sand on Earth.
Yep.
If we were to pick one of those at random and then give you one chance to guess which of the 7.5 quintillion grains of sand on the entire planet we had chosen, your odds of choosing the correct grain of sand would be 23% better than picking a perfect bracket by coin flip alone. So obviously, when you're a little more educated in college basketball, your chances go up. But if you were just to arbitrarily pick the perfect bracket, the perfect combination, permutation of teams, you have a 23% better chance of picking the right grain of sand arbitrarily out of every single grain of sand on Earth than you do to pick the perfect bracket.
Yeah,
so
you talk about having more knowledge usually helps. Do you know how many games my perfect bracket lasted this year?
Mine lasted 0.
Same.
Yeah, I had Louisville going to the Elite Eight, and
Minnesota
they lost
beat
the first
them,
round.
In the first
but
game.
Yeah, that's whatever. You could talk about that with Kyle.
Yeah,
my bracket's bad, so I'm not the person to talk to about that. But I mean, if you go to like you assume the 1 seed will win, even though last year was an anomaly and they didn't win. If you assume the 1 seed wins the first round and nothing else, then instead of 63,
you're down
63 decisions, you're
59.
down to 59.
Right.
Due to the 59, which is, I don't know, a little less.
Yeah, whatever 10 to the 59 is. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, in essence, it is very, very unlikely that we will ever see a perfect bracket in our lifetime. And it gives some more numbers about like if every single American were to fill out
as well, it's going to be my next question. Mm-hmm.
If every single American were to fill out a unique bracket every single year with a 66.7% accuracy rate average, we would see a perfect bracket in 366 years.
Wow. Okay. So we're still waiting.
Yeah, we're still waiting. So go ahead and give me a follow at Conklin_34. That's CONKLIN_34. And you can find that link on there, recently retweeted.
We're not even 10 minutes in yet, and you think you already deserve a plug?
Hey, I just want to make sure the listeners can see what I'm seeing and understand how absurd the odds are of getting a perfect bracket. That's why we've never had one. 39 games is like the longest streak, and that's right now this year.
No, now it's 48.
Holy cow.
It was 39, but that's what I was going to say. There is still one perfect bracket remaining, which I think it has to be the first time ever we've made it to the second week of the tournament with someone still having a perfect bracket.
Yeah, in the current configuration.
Correct.
Yeah.
So 48 in a row this guy has, and then he's taken all 1s and 2 seeds to win their matchups Thursday, Friday. So if he wins those 8 games, he'd be up to 56. And then he has, let's see, Duke, Gonzaga, Virginia, Kentucky in the Final Four. Gonzaga over Kentucky. So, I mean, this tournament has been pretty chalky, so it kind of makes sense that this year would be the year where this streak has been kind of enhanced. But yeah, there is still one bracket right now out there. I don't know he's not on ESPN. I think it might be CBS. I can't. And tell.
I think the crazy thing about this is if he gets every single matchup right except for like one, if he just chooses the championship match wrong, he could still lose. Even though he got every other match correct, he could still lose. Because the point system is weird. More numbers, but that's enough basketball talk. I'm bad at basketball.
Yeah, well, if anyone listens to my bracket, thing they know that I'm bad at basketball too.
Yeah, one thing, at least I'm doing a little better than you, but not by much.
No comment. One thing we are both not bad at is traveling internationally, surprisingly. We've both been blessed. We're on the France-Spain trip as we were in the same group, actually, for our junior year of high school, I believe it was. And then more recently, you went to Scotland.
I did.
Why did you go to Scotland?
So I went to Scotland because I was asked to be in the university honors program at the University of Cincinnati.
Wow.
And
nerd.
Of course I accepted that because I figured it'd be a fun time, and their honors program is pretty cool. There's a few benefits, but I took a class this year that had a study abroad portion of it. So in class, we talked about renewable energy and basically the sort of timetable we have to turn around climate change and things of that nature. Healthy earth that our politicians in America seem to ignore. But in Scotland, the politicians don't ignore climate change, and they are upwards of 90% reliant on renewable energy. And most of that comes from wind. So the course title was The Answer is Blowing in the Wind, Energy, Environment, and Society. So we went to Scotland, and part for fun, part for educational. And so we got to visit some wind turbine farm. We got to visit some companies that are taking a big hand in helping finance the wind farms and renewable energy, and learn about how the wind turbine farms work with the communities. They don't just come in and say, we want to put a wind turbine farm here. They talk to the community. They actually, most of them have cooperatives, which I was not familiar with. You might be a little more familiar with, or any of listeners that are financially literate might be familiar with a cooperative where the community basically asks for a certain amount of money, or I guess the company really asks for a certain amount of money from the community so that they can invest in this wind farm. And they guarantee a 4% return rate on their investment. So they can buy shares for like $250, and they cap the amount of shares they can buy. So like 4 shares max per family, because they really want it to be a community investment. And although the investment from the community is not very significant in terms of how much actually pays for the wind farm, because it's very expensive.
Right.
But the investment from the community gives them a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership for the wind farm. It feels like they're helping the environment and they're helping the community with it. So very, very different than anything that the United States has implemented or thought about implementing. And that was the big educational aspect. Outside of that, we did fun things like hiking around. Scotland's beautiful. The weather patterns are crazier than Cleveland. We experienced 4 seasons in a matter of 4 hours. So I will never complain about the craziness of Cleveland.
So that is truly shocking. When you texted me that shocked me, because I think Cleveland is some of the most bipolar weather I've ever seen. It's nothing, it's so much compared to what I experienced down here in Florida.
It is, and Cleveland's crazier than what I experienced in Cincinnati. a mere 4 hours away. Like, people complain about Cincinnati weather, and I'm like, oh, no. I'm from Cleveland. I'm from Cleveland. You don't understand, pal. Yeah. And now the go-to is going to be, I went to Scotland. They have crazy weather. So on one of our hikes, we were hiking up a small mountain. We didn't go to the summit of the mountain. We went to a little landmark. I don't know if it was considered mountain climbing or not, but okay. on the way up, blue skies, we start going, we get sprinkled on a little bit, clear skies again. We get poured on a little bit, clear skies again. Mm-hmm. We get to the top, beautiful weather. We start walking down. We get hailed on, straight hail for 2 minutes, heavy hail out of nowhere. I realized on the way down what the term out of the blue comes from, or at least I would assume it's for when the sky is blue, and then out of the blue you get pouring rain or you get snow or hail, whatever. And that just dumbfounded me. I was speechless.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. So you're talking about how the kind of wind stuff has not been implemented in the U.S. Of course, there's a lot of issues, I would say, with climate and stuff like that. I know wind is not one of the most reliable renewable resources, so I assume, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I assume Scotland has better climate to take advantage of that. Is there anything in the U.S. like that? You would probably have this, knowing you say you like numbers. Is there like a ratio of the different kind of wind farms or something like that? Or what are we doing at America that's slightly equivalent to what Scotland's doing in any renewable energy field?
Well, pulling out of the Paris Agreement in terms of the energy and climate change and stuff was a step in the wrong direction, I think. Mm-hmm. But Scotland climate is definitely way more apt to working with renewable energy resources, wind in particular. It was very windy over there. One constant in the blue skies, the rain and the hail, was the wind for sure. So they have lots of wind, and that works well for them. They have a little bit of solar too, a little bit of tidal, but tidal and wave energy is still being developed. So it's mostly wind. And in the U.S., we have wind in certain places. We have solar in certain places. We have hydroelectric in certain places. So it really depends. The difficulty about the United States is it's huge compared to almost every other single country in the world. So Scotland, the United Kingdom, very small compared to the U.S. So all of their land is windy. So they can use wind energy, whereas we have to break it up. And like Oklahoma, Texas area, they have an insane amount of solar energy. That's where, I mean, you could imagine, right?
Yeah.
It's a desert.
Right.
So that's where most of our solar energy comes from, is right there. And we have a lot of wind energy on the West Coast. We have a lot of hydroelectric in like the northern borders and the West Coast. So the problem is that it's difficult to store and transport because you lose a lot of the energy when you transport it long distances. So even if Texas and Oklahoma and that region of the United States, they could probably feasibly, if we put enough solar panels there, create enough electricity to supply the entire United States there. The problem is then you have to store it or transport it, and we lose it.
Yeah, so we don't have that infrastructure.
Right. It's implementing non-centralized energy places to try and fulfill our energy demands. And then you look at that's just for electricity, and where the UK and Scotland isn't so ahead of the game, but still working towards improvements, is transportation. Because almost every single car on the street uses petroleum, uses diesel, uses unleaded gas, whatever. So transitioning to electric cars helps if you're using renewable electricity, but if you're just using natural gas or coal fueled electricity, then that's not really an improvement, is it? You're still using non-renewable resources. So it's important as we transition to electric cars it's even more so important to create renewable electricity. And Scotland's moving towards electric cars, and we toured a bus facility that is creating hybrid buses and all electric buses and helping with that. And that was really neat to check out. And co-oping at Bendix was really cool to make the connections from what I learned at Bendix, the commercial vehicle industry, and what I learned at this Alexander Dennis busing industry, and the plans that Bendix has and how it's similar to what they're doing right now. So that was really neat to check out. But I think the United States, it's difficult. I'm not going to lie. Like, if it was easy, it would have been done by now.
Right.
But first step is getting buy-in from everyone. I think Scotland realizes climate change is a problem when you have, I think, like 40% of the United States doesn't think climate change is a problem. Well, then you're not going to get moving on it. So first step is people to understand climate change is an issue. Our Earth is warming. If it warms by 2 degrees Celsius, it will cause, over the next century, it's projected to warm by 3 or 4 on our current track. If it gets to 2, we're going to have like cataclysmic, unreversible changes with polar caps melting, sea levels rising. Something that I learned about in this class that I didn't realize was a problem is permafrost melting. So permafrost is ground that is frozen and stays frozen year round.
Okay.
And in parts of like Greenland and Iceland, where it's like all permafrost, there's a lot of methane that's trapped in it. So as the permafrost melts, the methane is released into the atmosphere, which is worse than carbon dioxide.
Correct.
So as that happens, we just keep going further and further in the wrong direction. So buy-in is step 1, and then policy changes at the government level is step 2. And once it's a profit monetarily, it'll be accepted by society and go forth. So
especially in the U.S. too.
Yeah, so as our technology advances and the dollar signs are lighting up in people's eyes and right in front of their face, they'll realize, oh, yeah, renewable energy is great.
Yeah. I've always just intuitively, I don't know much about this. Obviously, I'm not in a class or anything like that, but I remember when we were kids or younger in middle school, we'd learned about, the 5-6 renewable resources. And you touched on it, sun, wind, water, hydroelectric, geothermal as well.
Yeah. Biothermal is one that doesn't get touched on much. It's like if you are planting corn and then you harvest all your corn and you shuck it all, then like the shucks, those leaves are biomatter. You burn it similar to burning coal, which is technically renewable, but not the best for the environment because you're still burning. So we want to get away from burning, but that's one that people talk about sometimes, biothermal. And you said geothermal and a lot of these can be used in multiple ways. So geothermal typically is thought of like you have the air that's deep under the Earth's crust that is the same temperature relatively. So whether you pump air through or water through to try and sustain that temperature in your household or in your building, in your company,
right,
you're saving energy by not having to heat. But another way of using geothermal is sending water down. It evaporates, steams upwards, and then spins a turbine or a motor, generates electricity that way instead of just sustaining heat levels.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I've just always intuitively thought solar would be the answer, and I'm glad you brought up the point of storing it, because I was just like, the sun is there. You know what I mean? Like, the sun is this powerful thing that literally gives energy to all life, whether we realize it or not, through the energy cycles of plants and then animals and etc. So it would make sense that we would use that. And this is a conversation for another day. But for me, once we figure out nuclear fusion, we'll be good. We'll be good.
Yeah, that's another hot topic, you know.
Well, we don't have enough time to get into that right now, but once...
Personally, I'm an advocate. I'm an advocate of nuclear. Some people aren't. I think it's safe if it's done right.
Well, yeah.
With like the very small, isolated problems that have been detrimental to communities, and like everyone's worried about it. So,
well, that's the thing. Like,
and it's expensive. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
it's expensive, and that's what makes me the most upset about this entire discussion. Is, well, yeah, the environment's gonna suffer, and climate change is bad, but it's expensive to implement windmills, so it's going to be a struggle because, money is the problem. This arbitrary concept that we as humans and as a society have created, that's the problem. The fact that our Earth is suffering, that's whatever. I mean, it can be put off on hold until it's cheaper to do. That makes me so mad.
Right. Yeah. So, and what you're talking about, of course, is fission. In the sense of all that, what we've done.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if we are able to figure out how to get fusion, because that's what the sun runs on, is fusion.
Right.
But
yeah,
we can't really do that.
Right. That's what we haven't figured out yet. That one of my instructors for this course is a physics professor.
Yeah.
And he says that in the industry, they always say fusion is 20 years away. And 40 years ago, it was 20 years away.
Right.
Currently, it's 20 years away.
That's the problem.
In 20 years, it's going to be 20 years away.
Yeah. I mean,
they're trying, but...
I mean, yeah, they build those giant particle accelerators like you see in The Flash and just smash atoms of hydrogen together. And they're like, oh, they don't stick. Damn. Literally, that's like what it is. Like, that's literally, you're trying to fuse, I don't know if it's hydrogen or if it's deuterium, but you're trying to fuse that small nuclei together. And it's either, you probably know this more than I do. I haven't taken physics in a while. It's either the strong nuclear force or the weak nuclear force prevents that from happening because it's very strong with the protons. As you know, everyone knows from basic science, protons repel. So that's the problem, because if basically nuclear fusion is trying to get those proton charges to fuse, because when that happens, that releases a ton of energy. If we figured that out, we would never have any issue with energy ever again, basically.
Well, yeah, we would have to mass produce that because... Well,
yeah, we'd have to make sure someone like ExxonMobil didn't try to commercialize it and sell it at a high rate, and then whatever. So your point about capitalism with energy still stands. So... yeah. Anyway, that's just a tease. We could talk about nuclear fusion for a long time, but I just want to throw that out there.
Let's talk about all this energy stuff for a long time.
That's right.
Outside of educational, I visited a Talisker distillery. Have you heard of Talisker Scotch whiskey? I
have not. I am underage, therefore I've never drank before.
You're not underage in Scotland. So
good point. Okay.
Drinking age is 18, and I guess it's a famous Scotch whiskey. I had never heard of it because no one in my family drinks Scotch whiskey. But also a learning lesson for my dad. We argued about this for a hot second after the tour. He thought that Scotch and whiskey were different, but they are not.
I've heard that they are different, like a Scotch versus a whiskey.
There's different types of whiskeys and Scotches with like single malt, and I don't know what I'm not an expert in the matter nearly, but I do know that they clearly explained Scotch is just whiskey that is made entirely in Scotland. That's the only difference.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
Visited that, and they had like tasters samples for us because we were all of drinking age in Scotland, and I thought it tasted awful.
Didn't even get to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, it was bad, but I mean, some people enjoyed it.
Right.
Some people some bottles and brought home. You had to be 21 to bring a bottle home. We only had a couple that were 21 on the trip.
I see.
And since the drinking age was 18, I did have 2 beers over the course of the entire week I was there, and I did not enjoy either of them. So that explains my extracurriculars to you back in the States. But it was fun. Edinburgh is a very historic city.
Yeah.
It's very old. We saw castles and the buildings that you just walk around the city and you see beautiful architecture similar to what we saw in Spain and France. Like, it's just so old. The United States is so young, and that's sad.
It's kind of crazy.
It is. Like the powerhouse United States is only couple hundred years old, whereas other countries are thousands.
Right.
And we actually presented to some graduate students, one at the University of Edinburgh and one at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow.
Strathclyde. Okay.
Yeah. And it was pretty intimidating because we literally 14 undergraduate students in a variety of majors. There were a couple mechanical engineers, a couple chemical engineers, and then like biology, fine arts, finance. So like it was across the board. It was an honors class. It wasn't an engineering class. And that was cool. But we presented to these master's students who are mastering in like renewable energy or like some engineering stuff. And we're like, hi, this is the University of Cincinnati. This is Cincinnati. This is our class. And then they're like, hi, this is what I'm doing for my doctorate degree. And
no big deal.
Right. That was fun though. That was cool. So we got to see a wave pool. And when I think of wave pool, I think of like Kalahari or Great Wolf Lodge, but this was a scientific wave pool that they used to basically like look at the fluid dynamics of turbine blades for tidal energy mostly, but it can also be adapted to offshore or onshore wind turbines because water is a fluid just like air. And I don't know, they do special calculations for that, but they showed us some party tricks for the big pool where they just made big splashes, or they can make it wave in the shape of a heart. So it's literally just a big circle with like 162 paddles that they program at a high level to do science things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was fun.
Good. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. Next thing I want to talk about before we get to our game here in a couple minutes. Something you did not enjoy would be the University of Cincinnati's first round defeat. So this is funny because people outside of Cincinnati and UCF don't realize that we're in the same conference.
Right.
So they'll see us tweet at each other, I imagine, and they probably go, oh, whatever, who cares? But for maybe two people, they're like, wait, JJ and Zach are adding each other during all this. So this is true because we are in the same conference, and until recently, I would say Cincinnati's always had decent sports programs, I'd say. Big ones, football, basketball. They've been pretty on the map.
Yeah. About a decade ago, we were hard on the map in football. We had like 4 conference championships in 5 years, and we were ranked higher than Ohio State in the AP poll for a period of time. Like that was, I didn't know what University of Cincinnati was back then, but I guess that was exciting times.
Right. And then with so both in the American Conference and now UCF, obviously, after their national championship in football, and they almost came about a half inch from beating Duke yesterday in basketball in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Second round. Which Cincinnati did not make. And then I would say, basically, we're not rivals in real life. UCF's main rival's USF, South Florida. And I think UCF probably has a bigger rival with Memphis as well, because we've played them 4 times in the past 2 years in football. UC, I don't know. Who's your rival? Miami of Ohio?
Yeah, for football, it's Miami of Ohio. For basketball, it's Xavier.
Yeah.
And Xavier's our biggest rival in everything, but they don't have a football program, so we de facto win every year, but Miami is our next rivalry. We actually UC and Miami is has the longest non-conference rivalry in like NCAA football. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. You know, else is cool?
What?
UCF smashing the crap out of Cincinnati when College Game Day was here.
Yeah, that was probably pretty cool for you guys. Hey, Zach, who won the conference championship for football the last 2 years?
We did.
Yes, and who won the conference championship for basketball the last 2 years?
I mean, it doesn't matter if you can't make it past the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Well, there's no tournament for football. Oh, wait, there is, and you didn't get into it either. How many years consecutively has UC made the tournament? 9. Okay? I don't want to hear it.
For basketball?
Yes.
You're switching sports. You're confusing people.
Well, when you lose to UCF in football, you have to switch to basketball.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
We're on the up though. This year was supposed to be a rebuilding year for UC's basketball program, and we ended up winning the conference championship for basketball. Well, we won the tournament. We didn't win the regular season, but so we won the tournament for basketball, and everybody's expectations were exceeded. And then for football, I was pleasantly surprised at our performance. I was in Cleveland for the entire football season, so I didn't get to see a single home game. But we were undefeated at home, and we lost to UCF and Temple. Those were our only 2 losses this year. So we did extremely well after having not a great season the year before. And Luke Fickell is our new-ish head coach. This was his 2nd season, and he's really got us on the up. UCF, of course, had an undefeated season, regular and postseason last year, and then this year they were undefeated in the regular season and lost to LSU after they lost their starting star quarterback. So I think they would have gave him a run for their money. So definitely 2 programs in football, at least, that are on the up. And next year we've got UCF at home, and I think we're going to give them a run for their money. We have our starting quarterback and our starting running back returning, and they were great this year. So I have really high hopes for UC's football program and the Browns. Just throwing that in there. I'm probably going to have a very disappointing fall because I have very high expectations for my professional and college football team.
Well, those compliments are very nice of you towards UCF.
I'm just being honest. Like, I'm salty that UCF always beats us, but they're a good team. And basketball, I had them making it to the 2nd round and losing to Duke. So like, I expected them to win their first game because they beat UC once this year. Yeah. We've beaten them 3 times in the past 2 years, but like UCF's a good team. And I think, the American Athletic Conference Barstool always like touts out UCF. And I'm like, I get salty because I'm like, UC's good too, okay.
It would be, all I'm saying is it'd be a real shame if for our 4 years in undergrad, Cincinnati football never beat UCF. It'd be a real shame. We're already halfway through.
Well, I'm going to be here for 5 years.
That's cheating. If you win in the 5th year, I'm going to be pissed. That's cheating.
I'm not going to be here for 5 years because I took a break semester, but that's UC's engineering program is a 5-year program because we have.
Hold on. JJ's like, wait, some people are questioning me. They think I'm inferior. I gotta come out and make sure everyone knows.
Well, every time I explain to people that, oh yeah, I'm working this fall semester, I'm going back to school next semester, I always feel like they're judging me and that they think I'm taking like a break year and like that I might not go back to school the next semester. So right. I really worry about that. But yeah, so it's a 5-year program at UC. I'm not lame. I actually might get my master's degree in that same 5 years. So we'll see how everything shakes out and how much work I can put in.
Good. Ready to answer some unanswerable questions?
I'm ready to try. My ego is pretty big, comparable to Zach's, so this might deflate it a little bit, or it might inflate it. We'll see how it goes.
Why do we drive on the parkway and park on the driveway?
I've asked myself that question many times, and I don't know that I have a good answer to it. I'm guessing it just has to do with how it was named and in which order it was named. Maybe you can park, there's street parking places, right? So maybe you not only drive, but also park on the parkway, and you have to drive into a driveway to park. So it's dual purpose, both of them.
All right. Why are there interstates in Hawaii? Like interstate roads?
I didn't put them there. I'll tell you that much. maybe if you draw them across the Atlantic, they connect to a road in California or Washington, Oregon, whatever. So if you continue them, they would connect. But I'm just pulling that out of my ass.
Why is a boxing ring square?
Convention. That's how they started it. What shape is it supposed to be?
I mean, a ring implies it would be circular.
Right. And they make rings when they're fighting because they circle one another. And if you want to beat somebody into the corner, you can't do that in a circle.
I guess that's a fair point. Okay.
So not only boxing them into the corner, but also having a corner for like your trainer and your manager. Can't do that in a circle.
That's a good point. Why is it said that an alarm clock is going off when really it's coming on?
That's another good one. We'll say that it's because you're predicting that you're going to turn it off. I don't have a good one for that one either. There's a couple things that are like that are like it's going on, it's going off, because you definitely wouldn't say the alarm is going on.
Right. All right, last one. If you fart and burp at the same time, would it make a vacuum in your stomach?
This might be a better question for you than for me, pal.
I don't know.
I've never taken an anatomy course.
Neither have I.
I don't think a fart comes from your stomach. I think it comes from your rectum. So
yeah, we'll have to look that up.
So it doesn't impact your stomach or your intestines. Burp definitely comes from your stomach.
Yes.
But I'm pretty sure I don't think a fart travels from your stomach through your large intestines, your small intestines, and then gets to your rectum and goes out your anus. I think it starts in the rectum. So I would say no, it doesn't create a vacuum.
Okay, there you go. You did a pretty good job.
Thanks.
We don't have time for a story, so
I was gonna say what's the story segment gonna be?
We don't have time.
Can we abbreviate the story?
We're literally out of time.
All right, that's sad. What was the story gonna be?
I don't know. I didn't think about it.
I don't know. We went to Europe together. It was fun.
Something like that, yeah.
Made memories.
You'll be back on. Maybe we'll figure it out.
And maybe we'll try not to take so much time talking about renewable energy.
It's important.
This time, yeah. I'm sorry if any listeners were bored. Stuff really interests me, and clearly it interests Zach. And frankly, I think it should interest the general population for like not only the United States but the world, because climate change is not something that's only going to impact the United States.
I agree. All right, JJ, thank you for coming on.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'll try to be more abbreviated next time. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Assist Podcast. If you like the show, go drop a 5-star rating. That really helps us keep the show going. If you want to stay updated with all of the podcast episodes, hit the subscribe button, and also go follow our Twitter, which is @assist_podcast, and our Instagram, which is now the Assist Podcast. And you can write any emails, any suggestions you have to theassistpod@yahoo.com, and we'll see you next week.